if most people in terms of modesty feel like, oh, my work just speaks for itself, but that's not the way, because when you just keep your head down and you silence your voice, you are actually submerging your influence, right?
So Molly Hellerman, I am based in San Francisco, and I work under the CTO running technical program management, operations, and innovation. I am way less interesting than our panelists, so I'll just give you the one sentence intro to them, but I encourage you to find them on LinkedIn. They have all offered to chat more there. So we have Ashley. Ashley's a marketer, she's a writer, she's a speaker by day, actor, singer, fitness fiend by night, but she currently works as our director of integrated product marketing at Atlassian, and she does a ton of work around brand for the company, but also with leaders and others across the organization. So really delighted to have her expertise with us today. Becky is a 25-year tech vet. She's had leadership positions in government, higher education, healthcare, nonprofit sector, kind of the full board. But she currently serves as our principal engineer working at Trello at Atlassian. And then Bhakti is the author of 2 software books. She has more than 22 years of experience in architecting, design, implementing software solution, and is a regular speaker at many conferences. But she currently serves as our chief architect of Confluence Cloud at Atlassian. So a really seasoned group here. And I'm just going to launch into questions for them and hopefully not speak too quickly, because I often get that feedback to slow it down. So just feel free in the chat. If we are going too fast, just flag me down. We can go slower. But I wanted to start our very quick session here. I don't even think you could get a pour over coffee in San Francisco made in the time of this session. But I want to talk about, like, what do we mean by personal brand? Just to level set us, why is it important? Ashley, why don't I start with you? And then if others want to build off of that would be great.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a maybe surprising answer to this question, given that I am a marketer, but building a personal brand is actually not about turning you into a marketing shill. It's really about honing in on the ideas and the stories and the experiences that are uniquely you. And so when we talk about building a personal brand, too many people focus on just that brand piece of it and forget about the personal piece. So what we're really talking about today is, how do you shape that story and that narrative about yourself as you grow in your career?
Yeah, Ashley, I'm glad you said that, because I certainly have been guilty of thinking of marketing shill when I hear personal brand, but because I'm an engineer. But I just want to put out there, it's really important, because the way you tell your story is the flywheel for the rest of your career. So it starts, you tell a piece of your story, someone sees it, they give you an opportunity based on that, and that opportunity leads into the next chapter of your story. So it can feel hard to get the flywheel started, but once you do, it has vast benefits.
Let me, Bhakti, did you want to add, or can I?
Yeah, you could go to the next question.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, it's not a next, we're trying to create a good conversation here, but I just want to pull a little bit more on that storytelling thread around personal brand. And in particular, I think a lot of times there's a struggle between, well, I'm telling this story, but it's also my reputation. It's my name that's there. It's my face that's there. Can one of you talk about sort of how this storytelling and personal brand is different than your reputation, or is it the same? How do we think about that?
I'll chime in on that and say it is different than your reputation. You have a reputation, whether you try to influence that or you try to shape that or not. The reputation is kind of what gets said about you behind your back. It is what gets said about the work that you do. It gets said about how you show up, whether you put effort into that or not. Everyone has a reputation. You can have a good reputation or a bad reputation. The difference with that personal brand is that you are starting to take ownership of it, and you are curating which facets of yourself you want to lean into. And I hear this a lot where people are like, well, I'm always myself. And if you saw in my bio, singer, actor, fitness fiend, marketer, writer, speaker, I am all of those things. But those are the things that I've chosen to say about myself. I'm also a wife. I'm also a daughter, right? I don't talk about those things because those aren't the aspects of myself that I want to lean into. And so when you think about that personal brand versus a reputation, it's really about choosing what you want to be known for and making sure that you're influencing that versus it just happening on the side without you getting to have some input.
But thank you. And this is the question that I have, though, is that, I work with engineers all day, and we have 2 amazing engineers on this call. Shouldn't the work just speak for itself? Becky, Bhakti, why don't you guys, I'd love to hear your thought. Like, right, you do good work. It should be noticed. It's what people are looking at, you know, it's
Yeah, I could take that. So your work doesn't just speak for itself, right? Like if most people in terms of modesty feel like, oh, my work just speaks for itself, but that's not the way, because when you just keep your head down and you silence your voice, you're actually submerging your influence, right? So the way I feel is it's very important to voice your opinions, and we have to be, because that's valuable for your organization as well as for yourself. So I personally feel that you should be voicing your opinions and talking about your work. Becky, do you want to add more?
Sure. I mean, I would say, if you feel like your work's going to speak for yourself, then you have to ask yourself who is listening. And really no one, right? It's up to you. And it really can feel sometimes, if you're not used to this, like you're just out there promoting yourself. But I would suggest to you that, back to the storytelling, like you should find the common threads in your work and weave together a narrative. And it can be authentic, right? It doesn't have to be self-promotional. You can think about, look past on your past projects and find the common threads. Like maybe you really helped somebody get data that they didn't have access to before. Maybe you designed a feature that users have been asking for 5 years. You can talk about that from the perspective of the people you've helped, which promotes yourself as a brand as like a secondary concern, right? It's not the first thing that you are doing.
Thank you. Again, let me just shift us a little bit. I mean, it's the same thing, but you know, you all have had long careers so far, and probably more. I mean, I hope for Atlassian more to come. So how has your personal brand shifted, both just with along your career, but also as you've moved in and out of leadership positions, and IC back and forth, things like that? Because I'm sure we have a mix of folks on this call who are individual contributors and managers.
I can start. I think I don't actually think your brand should really shift that much between being an IC or a people manager. The brand should have that through line all the way through your career.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the depth of the stories that you tell may be different. So as I've moved up in my career, I've moved from being branded as a marketing practitioner, speaking to other marketing practitioners. And now I would say I'm at the stage where I'm more of a marketing practitioner speaking to business leaders. The next stage of my brand would be as a business leader speaking to other business leaders. And so you'll find that it's still based on the work I've done, the impact that I've had, the people that I've helped, the types of challenges and problems that I solve. But the depth of my ability to speak about those has changed and the audience has shifted, but I am still myself. And I'm still bringing in all of the work that I've done and the experience that I have. So I would say that the core brand doesn't really change as you switch. It's more about the depth and the audiences that you address.
Yeah, to add to what Ashley said, right? Like the audience changes. So for me, I was an individual contributor, but now I don't have direct reports, but I'm the chief architect for a product. So the way the journey has changed is you are actually finding new ways and avenues for the team. You're inspiring shared visions, you're challenging processes. That's how I see the transitioning happening for my brand. And I would love to hear what Becky has to add as part of her role also. So.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because Bhakti, you're like, I secretly admire you from afar, even though we've never met. So truly your scope does like impact the entire organization, even beyond Confluence. I don't have much to add, except just as, you know, you move up the IC ladder, it's the scope of your influence that changes, right? So it's not just who you're talking to, but it's who you're influencing. So I bring my past and like my desire to democratize data access, because that's kind of my through line. I can do certain things with that as, you know, on a project by myself. I can do more things with that when I'm feature leading a team. I can do even more things with that as I work across teams.
Excellent. Thank you guys for that really fulsome answer. An indication as to what type of company Atlassian is, and that we do like to work across teams. Obviously, we create products for enterprises to do this, but it definitely is a hallmark of how we work. To that end, you know, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to ask for a quick answer from each of you. And that we are also pretty practical as a company. We like to get shit done, and we want to do it well. And so can you offer some practical ways or tips to build that or curate, you know, as we've discussed, that personal brand? And maybe if you have it, I mean, I don't know if you do, but one that is internal and one that is external, because a lot of it happens in the building, or is in building, or on the Zoom, and the other happens, as the rest of the world looks at us. So I'm gonna go down my screen with Bhakti, Ashley, and then Becky, just because that's how you're on my screen.
Sure. So one of the practical tips I have is be passionate about something, voice your opinions. So internally also, like Atlassian is a very open culture, so we can definitely voice our opinions. And for an external tip, I feel, these avenues are great, like to promote your brand, to talk about stuff, and, encourage women across, right? Like to get into leadership positions. Ashley, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I'll focus my tip externally, and this is super tactical, and I'm very passionate about LinkedIn. I think there's a lot of opportunity to build your personal brand on LinkedIn, which then does eventually translate internally and externally. But tips to get started on that: start with commenting. Leave substantive comments. So for example, if you go onto mine, if you're in marketing, I post a lot of things related to marketing. Leave a substantive comment about how that relates to your work, or how you've seen that work or not work, how you've potentially implemented a similar comment or concept. Same thing with Bhakti and Becky. Go on their LinkedIn, they post, they share, and so you can leave substantive comments there, and that's a way to start building that relationship and reputation. And then Becky, I think you're last.
Sure, and we're almost out of time, so I too will focus on the external. I agree, like with what Ashley said, go where the people are, but also invest in your own little piece of the internet. I have this big fear that somebody will buy LinkedIn or some other social media company and just yank your content away. So I like to mirror it on my own domain because I want to own my personal brand. I don't want it to be owned by a third party.
Awesome. Rupal, I see that you have a question. I don't know that we have time to answer, but I encourage you to reach out to our panelists on LinkedIn. They have offered to chat more there. I will add one additional comment that I think is reflected in this panel is find friends and make friends, and be open to meeting new people, because that is going to expand your horizons. All of us have worked together in different capacities or know of each other via Confluence pages and things like that. But to have these opportunities to share is really important. And so hopefully this conversation continues with all of you. Feel free to ping us. And thank you again for hosting Atlassian as part of this coffee break. Inky, I'll turn it back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. That was great.